What's up, all my movie loving maniacs? This your boy Bangful B of the Lassiter Factor, and I am here with a review of The Incredibles, which is celebrating its 20th anniversary this month, and I recently rewatched it, so let's review. So, The Incredibles is a Disney film that was made by Pixar, and it centers around this family of superheroes. There's a lot of underlying things that are happening in this movie, but that is more or less the plot of this movie. Now, it is without a question, The Incredibles is one of my favorite Pixar movies of all time. It's one of my favorite animated films of all time. It's one of my favorite superhero movies of all time. And to me, this movie was like the peak of that first one that Pixar had at the beginning of the studio's inception. It started with Toy Story, and then after that, we got A Bug's Life, Toy Story 2, Monsters Inc., Finding Nemo, and then The Incredibles. To me, this was the peak of that run. Everything that they had done up to that point had led to this. And of course, I also have a lot of nostalgic memories for this movie. I remember I was in middle school when this movie came out, and I had never seen anything like this for an animated movie. And when it came out, I loved it. Everybody and their daddy loved it. And of course, it still holds up today that we even got a sequel and a third one on the way. And even watching this with adult eyes, there is a lot to love and appreciate about this movie. In fact, the last time I went back and revisited this movie was back in 2018 before the second movie was get ready to come out. And right now, I don't really have no plans to go back and rewatch the second movie. I'm basically saving that for when the third movie comes out. Just wanted to focus on the first film and nothing else, and just be able to sit back and just appreciate the first film for what it is, and not thinking about like how does this play into the second film or how it is compared to the second film. Though I will say after rewatching this film, I can kind of appreciate the second film a little bit more. But Brad Bird, he is the director of this movie. Prior to this movie, he made The Iron Giant, and then he would go on to make Ratatouille, Mission Impossible Ghost Protocol, and emphasis on the animation because it really does hold up. It is great because this is one of those movies where Pixar they were really able to perfect how to make humans look good in this particular animation form. Because prior to this, they were having huge issues. If you saw the way the humans looked in all the earlier films prior to this, you'd be like, oh, that doesn't look too good. But here they got it right, and part of it is because most of the animation styles from the Iron Giant, Brad Bird brought into this movie just in CGI form. And the story surprisingly still holds up. And the amount of world building they did in this movie was just right because this movie does take place in like I think the 1950s, 1960s, somewhere around that time. But anyways, it just works for here and make it gives it its own visual style. But also just how they sub the superheroes in this movie, they're just out and about willy nilly saving the world. But then it does have some real world consequences in which all the times they saved the world, there were some casualties. People got hurt to the point where people started suing the superheroes, and the superheroes were forced to go into hiding and live normal lives. But then you have Bob Park, who plays Mr. Incredible. He now has to work in an insurance company, but he's not loving what he's doing. He just wants to relive the glory days. The life with Helen, who is Elastigirl, and it's crazy because I always like the beginning of this movie where we get that footage of them talking about what they want to do. Like Bob Parr, he wants to live a normal life, and Elastigirl, she doesn't want to leave the superhero life. But then it turns out that it's a complete reverse. Of course, they got their youngest son Jack, but they got their other two kids, Violet and Dash. But Bob, he's strong. Helen, she can stretch. Violet, she can make herself invisible and make force fields. Dash, he's fast. Frozone, played excellently by Samuel Jackson. He can freeze stuff. And then there's Syndrome, the villain of this movie, in which he's also kind of a, let's say, commentary on nerddom because he idolized Mr. Incredible. He wanted to be just like him. And then he ends up disappointing him, and he becomes the villain of the movie, Syndrome. Just mad that Mr. Incredible just couldn't accept him, which, A, is almost a commentary on fandom because it's like you idolize something, and then when something doesn't meet up to your expectations, you act like it's the end of the world. But this movie is basically about midlife crisis through Mr. Incredible, Bob Parr, because he wants to relive his superhero days. He's still a little dissatisfied in life, and though he loves his family, he's in a way dissatisfied with them, and yet at the end of the movie, he gets to relive those glory days with his family and share that life with them. And aside from Samuel Jackson, the rest of the voice cast is excellent. You got Craig T. Nelson playing Mr. Incredible, Holly Hunter playing Elastigirl, Jason Lee, who plays Syndrome in this movie. He had to play two different versions of himself. He had to play the kid version of himself and the adult version of himself. His vocal work in that is excellent. Shout out to Michael Gugino, who did the music in this movie, and just that last hour of this movie is just nothing but all sorts of kick-ass, and just from the way this movie is paced, that third act, the way it's paced, and the tone, the action, the animation, the voice work, everything was firing on all cylinders during that last hour. And I also gotta give a shout to Etna Mode, who is also the biggest standout character in this movie. She makes all the suits for the superheroes, and hey, we all have a Etna Mode in all of us. Or maybe we know a Etna Mode in our life. I can gush all day about this movie because there is so much to love, but I'ma just simply say The Incredibles absolutely gets the hands up emoji because it is a masterpiece. And that's really it. I mean, what else can I say about this amazing movie that hasn't already been said? But that's it for the day. I ain't gonna ask if you've seen The Incredibles because chances are you have seen it. But what do you think about this movie 20 years later? Do you love it? Do you just like it? How do you think it holds up as an animated movie and as a superhero movie? Let me know in the comment section below. This your boy Bankful B. Stay safe, wash your hands, peace.